A number of previously secret documents were also made public, including an act from July 19, 1946 on the exhumed bodies and protocol of the inspection of the scene of the incident from July 21, 1946. The materials contain information about horrifying scenes of murders, striking in their senseless cruelty. We will add the text of the briefing with the references to corresponding sections. These declassified testimonies are kept in the Pobeda Museum and Memorial Complex and the Scientific Archive of the Sakhalin Regional Museum of Local Lore. In addition, you can get acquainted with the details of the reports on the resources of the Sakhalin media. We will make this section as complete with references and links as possible. The work to uncover and publicize the crimes of militaristic Japan will be continued, and you will agree it is impossible not to draw a parallel between the official Tokyo's hushing up of these barbaric actions of the Japanese military and its archive support for the Nazi regime in Ukraine, which used barbaric, brutal methods against the civilian population of Russia.
And the last question, on October the 30th, they've decided the new leadership for the Moldovan parliament, and on October 31st, they've even informed the government of the republic what are the expectations of the Russian side towards the new legal and acting power of Moldova. Of course, we have closely followed the forming of parliament and the government of Moldova. They have not just made statements, but also taken steps towards our country, and the steps of official Moldovan authorities can only be deemed as anti-Russian. It's difficult to say that the formations are new, because unfortunately at the helm are still representatives of pro-Western powers. As Moldovan politologists have pointed out, the changes were more of cosmetic nature. In the new parliament, just as after the last parliamentary elections in 2021, the deputy officials of the ruling party have gained the majority, have gained the positions of the president and one of the vice president. And the same situation is with the government, where more than half of ministers have come back from the former formation of the cabinet. And you can see how we shouldn't expect any major changes after the program of the work of the government was proposed on 31st of October, titled the EU Peace and Development. I don't know, perhaps they've turned off their TVs, have closed off their windows. Perhaps they're no longer aware of what the peace looks like in the Europe, because their program or economy are military oriented. Among the priorities of them are the conclusion of the negotiations by 2028 on joining the European Union, integration in the architecture of European security, as well as the modernization of legal and institutional base according to the EU standards. As for the restoration of dialogue with Russia, there is no mention of that whatsoever. On the contrary, they are aimed at continuing to denounce the agreements within the Commonwealth that are not in line with the interests of the Republic. We've also taken a look at the expert opinions, and the Western sponsors of Chisinau will continue to do everything under the guise of European integration, try to make of Moldova anti-Russia, another anti-Russia, following Ukrainian and Baltic example. So far, they're failing. Moldovan residents are advocating against being forced to do it. They remember and appreciate the contribution of Russia into the preservation and development of Moldovan statehood and national identity. And I'm convinced that looking what is being done to them, the citizens will not abandon their plans. We once again confirm our openness to restoration and development of constructive bilateral cooperation in the interests of people of Russia and Moldova. And of course, we will protect anything that has to do with real, true spirit of cooperation, friendship, in the name of our two peoples. Thank you so much, and I wish you a good day. Thank you so much. Is Reuters with us? Madam Zakharova, good afternoon. We're here, and we have a question about the recent Financial Times publications that reported that the U.S. were supposedly amazed by the intransigence of Russian Foreign Minister Lavrov during a meeting with Secretary of State Marco Rubio on the sidelines in September. And according to the sources, Lavrov's uncompromising stance regarding the conflict in Ukraine led to doubts on the American side about the negotiations of Moscow and Ukraine on the settlement. How could you comment on this report? It's like you knew what to ask. This is an incredible story, and I believe, and it's worthy of Agatha Christie works. If this article appeared back in the days of Agatha Christie, I believe it could be a pretext for another detective story titled A True American Article. Now let's take a look. Financial Times is a British source. Of course, there is an international component and a wide network of special correspondents, and there's different financing, but the main headquarters, and how to put it best, I don't want to say the main roots, but the main intellectual power is London. So an article comes out dedicated to the U.S.-Russia negotiations. The article makes references, this British news article makes references to the supposed sources aware of the state of negotiations between Russia and the U.S. So who could truly be aware, first and foremost, with the state of negotiations? Either representatives of the Russian Federation, but the article is clearly anti-Russian, or the representatives of the United States. Could the sources of the current American elite have anti-Russian nature? Of course, they have different sources. Could those be sources truly aware of the situation? Sure. But there is a certain point that does not make sense. Either those American sources truly aware of the situation around the negotiations would not leak this into a British source. They would give it to their own journalists. Secondly, why would a British newspaper publish material that not just takes pleasure in the theme of Russia-U.S. issues, as they've put it nicely, but they make an announcement out of it without mentioning any names. Perhaps we weren't expecting names, but not even their position or the area where the source is coming from. Why such article came out? That's because it's the UK, and I don't mean the British people, but the conglomerate of political elites, of special services. It's them